Please be seated. Welcome members. Sorry. No. I jumped the gun there. Yeah. Sorry, the page is on the wrong. Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Please, thank you. Please remain standing. Yeah. It will be. I will be starting this evening on a rather sad note. Many may already be aware of the tragic passing of Lee Kilby, the Council's senior auditor, in September. Lane had previously worked for the organisation for 10 years and returned 2 years ago. His contribution in the internal audit team was considerable, both in aiming to get the best outcome for the organisation and also as a friend. Lee had developed respect and relationships with colleagues in the business, and his passing will leave a huge void for the council and the family and his family, Deborah and Georgina. Of course, the nation has also mourned last month the death of Queen Elizabeth II, who passed away after having served as monarch for over 70 years. In August, we saw the passing of Sue Franklin, who served as mayoress to the former Peterborough City Council Mayor, Ben Franklin, as well as the former and the Mayor, Councillor Patricia Nash, MBE, and the former Councillor and Mayor and Leader, Charles Swift, OBE. I ask you to please join me now in a minute's silence in remembrance of Lee Kirby, Sue Franklin, Patricia Nash, Charles Swift, and Her Majesty the Queen's. May we have a minute's silence. Thank you. Please, I'm finding it very difficult to read these notes down here. Please welcome the Mayor's chaplain, Linda Elliott, who will be saying prayers this evening. Linda.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, friends. Rather than saying prayers, I speak from a Quaker perspective, and so I offer you a simple thought for this evening before Council begins, and then we'll keep a moment's silence together as we reflect on that thought. I've spoken previously of how the Quaker Garden in Thorpe Road was designed to illustrate the 5 principles by which Quakers try to live. Last Council meeting, we considered the first of these principles, and that was equality and community. Today, I'd like us to briefly consider the second principle, truth and integrity. This principle is illustrated in the garden by a series of circles which become evident as you explore it. The word truth here means more than just telling the truth, although this is an important aspect of it. Historically, Quakers got themselves into trouble by refusing to take an oath in court because they argued that they always spoke truthfully, so why would they do any different in court? The wider meaning of the word truth as a principle, however, refers to the truths by which we live and which we try to integrate into our lives in all of our daily living, in business, in politics, and in all interactions with others, so that we become known as people of integrity. Just to illustrate what I mean by this, historically, a fundamental truth that Quakers held dear was that everyone had a right to a decent standard of living. This was integrated into their business dealings, and they were keen to ensure the welfare of their employees. We know that firms such as Cadbury's, Rowntree's, and Fry's, which were run by Quakers, made sure that their employees were taken care of. In our own city of Peterborough, Baker Perkins, a firm my husband worked for 40 years, was partly founded by a Quaker, and it was well known for looking after its employees. So I invite you now to keep a brief moment of silence with me as we reflect on this second principle, truth and integrity. And in the silence, it's an opportunity to consider what are the truths by which we try to live and which we try to integrate into our living. It can also be an opportunity to reflect on what fundamental truths unite this council in its work in Peterborough and its surrounds, so that those truths may be integrated into the discussions and decisions that are taken forward. So I invite you to keep a moment of silence with me as we reflect on what truth and integrity means to us individually and what it means to this council. Thank you, friends. May truth and integrity guide your meeting.
Thank you, Linda. Welcome members, those in the public gallery and those watching on live stream. I will now hand over to Rachel Edwards to go through some housekeeping points.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Can all those present please ensure that all mobile phones are set to silent? In the event of any evacuation, please exit through the doors on both sides of the chamber, following the council staff to the assembly point. As per normal rules, if you wish to speak, please ensure that you raise your hand and you'll be invited to address the meeting. The Mayor has confirmed that he's happy for the members to remain seated when addressing the chamber. The vote on the agenda on item 3, move to hold all-out elections this evening, will require 2/3 of those voting to vote in favour in order for it to be carried. As such, we will be conducting the vote via a show of hands unless a recorded vote is requested, then this will be taken in the normal way. As per previous meetings, you have laminated copies of for, against and abstain on your table. When we come to vote, please raise the correct coloured document to make the vote counting easier for the team. I will take each for, against and abstain in turn. Please note that the vote will take place in two, potentially three parts for this item. The first vote will be for recommendations 1 to 3. The second vote will be on the recommendation 4, and if a third vote is required, this will be on recommendation 5. There is also the points document. If you wish to raise a point, please raise the pink document and address the Mayor accordingly, stating which point you are raising. Finally, I'd like to remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that when you speak, you're using your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have apologies from Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members this evening which are not already recorded separately on their individual register of interest? No? Thank you. Agenda item 3, move to the whole all-out elections. Agenda item 3 is in relation to the proposal to move to the whole council elections and can be found in the agenda pack with further information in the additional information pack. Councillor Coates, would you therefore like to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I'm moving this report for Council to formally resolve and move to whole council elections, commonly known as all-outs. This was a key recommendation of the External Assurance Governance Review, which was undertaken on behalf of DLUC in November 2021. The government's current policy is to encourage all councils still not holding all-out elections to consider using the powers Parliament has given to switch to 4 yearly elections to help incentivise long-term planning and strengthen strategic decision-making. Holding elections every 4 years can facilitate stable, strategic place leadership with the ability to deliver a clear programme for the electorate, and also gives time to tackle some of the longer-term issues that communities might face. This is particularly important for 2 key areas in Peterborough: adult social care and the growth agenda, which would benefit mostly from a 3 to 5 year perspective. There is also a financial benefit to moving to all-out elections with a saving of £62,000 per year compared to elections by thirds. A consultation was launched on the 25th of July and ran for 8 weeks to 19th of September, which was then extended for 1 week during the mourning period of the death of Her Majesty the Queen. 232 people responded to the consultation, which was less than expected, but the results were that 150 people responding, or 64.6%, were in favour of moving, and 130, or 81% of those wishing to move to all-outs in 2023. The alternative position is to do nothing and remain as we are. The arguments for this are to enable smaller parties to be able to field sufficient candidates to provide an alternative to the larger parties. Some of the consultees expressed a preference for annual elections to keep councillors on their toes and to ensure there were no significant changes to councillors in one go, which could lead to a lot of experience and knowledge being lost to the benefit of the city. The responses to the consultation range from helpful, reasoned arguments for and against to some rather less cogent responses. However, with around 0.1% of the voting public expressing an opinion, it's not statistically sensible to regard the consultation as a definitive guide of Peterborough public opinion. However, I ask Council to formally resolve to move to whole council elections. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Steve Allen, will you second the recommendation and either speak now or reserve your right to speak later in the debate?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll reserve my right to speak later in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call upon any other speakers? I can't see. Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The external review by DLUC recommends Council move to all-out elections, as Councillor Cole said, in 2023 to bring stability to the Council's decision-making and to encourage the development of more strategic, long-term solutions, better planning, accountability and better value for money for our taxpayers. The Government too is encouraging all councils to switch to all-out elections to help incentivise long-term planning. In June, we all agreed as councillors in this room to a public consultation to seek the views of people, and the result, as we've heard, is 64% of those that took part in the survey want the council to move to all-out elections, and 81% of those want it to happen in 2023. Now, we're all aware that the biggest obstacles we have to long-term planning is us, councillors, driven by party politics, ended up in campaign mode towards the end of every year, up until the elections the following May. And this continues to lead to difficult decisions being put off for fear of losing support of the electorate during the elections. And also election pledges that are unsustainable are made, such as, for example, the free bulky waste collection we had last time that was never going to last, and we all knew it wouldn't. Just look at the possible savings we can make, an expected £650,000 over a 10-year period. That's a council that's struggling to maintain its services with massive debts, and we just can't ignore it. If we're serious about controlling our own destiny rather than falling into full intervention and all decisions being taken out by an outside body, we must move to the all-out elections. As independents, you'll know we're not affected by party politics. We have no whip, and we're free to vote as we wish. And for that, I call on all councillors here to see through the party political stuff and vote as recommended by the external review, the government, and most importantly, the people. Fellow councillors, this is not a question of what's best for you, nor is it a question of what's best for your political party. This is a question of what's best for Peterborough. I urge you to listen to the Improvement Board, the government, and most importantly, the people, and vote for all-out elections starting next year in 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As to prove you're independent, I haven't got a clue what he was going to say, but he stole everything I was going to say, which is great. We're on the same wavelength. But the thing is, we've gone out to consultation to the people that we went to. This council organised the consultation. You got the result. How the heck can you not listen to it? Well, there's no point to consultation. It makes a mockery of it. So I agree with my colleague. It needs to be listened to, and we need to go for all-out elections. I don't care personally in the past which it went, but now I do know, because we've got to save money, and the public have come up with a result. Even if we don't agree with it, we have to support it, or there is no point. So I'm all for it.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Any other speakers? Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. I would like to put a contrary view, which is that we should retain our current system of election of the council by thirds. I'd like to put forward a few reasons for that. But first of all, I'd like to make a few preliminary comments. We've been asked by government to consider switching to having elections every 4 years. It's not true to say that we were told that we had to. We were told to consult on it and to consider it, and we have. But wouldn't it have been nice if we could have consulted the public with a questionnaire that was fair and was actually even-handed, rather than a questionnaire which asked a series of leading questions? It was a really poorly designed questionnaire, so it's surprising that the level of response we got was rather poor. And it would be really good if we as councillors could have been given all the results of the consultation, not just a summary. We were told about 2 or 3 weeks ago, as Councillor Coles has repeated, that if you look at the headline figures, 2/3 of respondents wanted all-out elections. And it was only at 16:55 on Tuesday that we were given the detailed comments that people had put forward. And it's interesting because I've actually analysed those. There are some of the comments don't actually comment on the question itself. But if you analyse them, those comments that do, 13 were arguing for all-out elections, whereas 23 were setting out reasons for keeping things as they are. So this idea that it was overwhelmingly in favour of all-out elections is just not true. So why should we keep elections by thirds? Let me just give you 3 reasons. First of all out elections under first past the post can significantly magnify small changes in party support into massive changes in numbers of councillors. There's numerous examples of this happening across the country. There's even an example in the London Borough of Hillingdon in 1968 when all the members of the controlling group lost their seats. Now, I actually put to you that losing a massive number of experienced councillors all in one go is not likely to deliver stability. It's more likely to actually bring chaos. Reason number 2 is that having elections by thirds allows people every 12 months to give an expression of view on the performance of the council. That is a democratic thing, and looking at how many £1,000 it's going to cost, you can't put a price on democracy. And the third reason is that having all-out elections discriminates heavily against smaller parties. If smaller parties have to fight 60 candidates as opposed to 20, it can be really difficult for them. So it's traditional in this council that we have elections by thirds. It's a system that works, and I hope it's a system that we can continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stafford. Councillor Hogg, would you like to participate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I just want to address this consultation. I think there were like 230 respondees out of an electorate of 140,000-ish people on our electoral roll. So this represents 0.16% of the electorate that responded to this. I'm not sure at what point you would feel that the amount of respondents would be a true indication of the will of the people. But I have to say 0.16 really does not, to my mind, truly reflect what the electorate are looking for. So it is very disappointing that maybe we didn't put enough effort into getting this consultation out there. It is a very important change that is being proposed here. So from my mind, I think that the consultation really doesn't stand up in terms of, there is obviously, the 230 people that did respond. I'm not saying that their opinion doesn't count, but the trouble is it's grossly outweighed by the people we have absolutely no idea what they're so all outs, yes, I understand that they can lead to these savings, but time and time again we're being told when we've across the city in various different parts that people are saying to me that their ward, they feel that they only see their councillors at election time. So with this, instead of seeing their councillors once a year, they're now going to be seeing them once every 4 years, which to me does not allow residents the opportunity to actually talk to their councillors and get their ideas across. So I think again, this is it's a lack of democracy. I find myself in the strange situation that I'm actually in agreement with the local MP for Peterborough. It probably won't ever happen again, but on this occasion, definitely something that I agree with him with. Ultimately, councillors need to be out there. They need to be engaging with their wards, and this is a step in the wrong direction in that regard. So I do think, you know, we need to, and the other thing is that, as has already been sort of touched upon by my colleague, Councillor Sanford, that this, you know, things are stacked at the moment with sitting councillors in their advantage.
Conclude, Councillor Hogg?
Sorry,
your time is up.
I'm sorry.
You haven't been
I've
briefed.
tried not being briefed. No, okay. So be it. Thank you very much.
Yep. Councillor Shazin, who was, if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope it's clear by now to everybody in the room that short-term thinking is partly the underlying consequence and the cause for where we find ourselves, or did find ourselves 18 months ago. And that's why Andrew Flockhart recommended, and it's important for us all to note, it is a recommendation from Andrew that we seriously consider moving to all-out elections. And I'm sure it's well known to everybody in the room that long-term thinking is important, both in terms of planning, growth, sustainability, stability, and we all claim that we're here for the best interests of the city and the people of Peterborough. And I think with that in mind, we have to vote for what we believe is right for the city. And I feel, Mr. Mayor, that all outs are the way to go. As Councillor Fox has pointed out, that residents responded to a consultation, irrespective of how the questions were worded, and I appreciate and respect what Councillor Sanford and Councillor Hogg have said. But if we don't listen to the public, why would they bother responding and engaging in future consultations? This is one of the big bugbears of people out there, because they feel politicians, both locally and centrally, once elected, don't listen and ignore what the public have to say. So I think we should make a point of appreciating, respecting, and seriously considering the consultation. Now, there's a reason why Parliament has given us the powers and recognises the many benefits of all-out elections, because if you speak to councillors up and down the country, and I took the trouble of doing that, Mr. Mayor, and all those who have all-outs that I spoke to said that was one of the best things that they have done. It's enabled them to take a very different approach in terms of how they run the council. And it's interesting that most of the councils who've had some form of intervention from government were on thirds as opposed to all out. And some of those who decided not to go for all outs, Mr. Mayor, like as mentioned in the report, Stoke, Birmingham, Doncaster, the government has used its powers to enforce all outs. So why should we not make that choice ourselves, and rather than the government forcing us to go down that avenue? And as has been pointed out by Councillor Coles, there are significant savings for us if we go down the route of all-outs. But the most important point, Mr. Mayor, is that having all-outs...
Could you conclude?
I am about to conclude. The most important point is that all-outs are going to enable us to set out policies which will transform the city, and that's what's most needed now. So I urge all councillors to do the right thing, put party politics aside, and support all-out elections.
Thank you. May I call upon Councillor Robinson?
Thank you. Good evening. If we reject the all-outs, then to follow the advice of the Minister of State of Department of Luck, we need a robust plan to address the issues which led to the recommendations, but we haven't got a robust alternative plan to meet the same ends. Robert Jenrick MP wanted better value for money for taxpayers on this, and on this occasion I agree with him. Reaching better value is our duty. I think back to budget talks and joint scrutiny of the budget meetings, if you remember those, where if this side of the room challenged a cut, citing impacts on the lives of residents here, we were rebuffed with, well, if you don't make this cut, you need to instantly, on the hoof, propose an alternative scheme of the same saving. I think that's maybe one of yours, Wayne's, but actually I'd like to recycle that this evening and make the same point now. So let's grab this opportunity to save. It's a rare one because it doesn't actually put the pinch on the person on the street here in Peterborough. Yes, this saving plan impacts the self-preservation of councillors, but any alternative, you know, cutting social care, swimming pools, libraries, impacts the lives of our residents. So is worse.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. If there's no more... Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to particularly speak on this, but what I'll start off by saying is I agree with everyone. Everybody in this chamber has made good points, and there is a case for and there is a case against. To answer Councillor Robinson's point, specifically, if I work backwards, it could cost us a darn sight more money if we take on Councillor Sanford's point about the loss of expertise, knowledge and everything else that comes along with all-outs if they go wrong, in the sense that how will that affect decision-making and control of budget, and will wise decisions be made? I don't know the answer to that, and nobody does. So today I could vote for all-out elections because I see a great deal of common sense in all-out elections. And I'll correct Councillor Harper as well as Councillor Sanford did, that there was no recommendation to move to all-out elections. There was a recommendation to consider it. There's also no recommendation as to when to do it either. So we've been wrestling for this for a number of months. In my own group, there are a variety of views on some are for, some are against, and for differing reasons. So I get the picture. What I am going to say tonight is I'm not going to support all-out elections on this occasion, but I'm willing to look at it again in the future, personally speaking, because I don't think now is the time to do this. I don't think we're in a position. And as for, again, I'm sorry, I disagree with you. We do have a plan, and it's called an improvement plan, and it's been laid out and worked out very carefully with the panel that we're working with. And I have to say to you, we're a great deal down the road in that improvement plan, in the fact that we've come away from the precipice that we're about to fall into 18 months ago, and we're a long way from it. So there is a plan. Now, the other thing, nobody has given me any strong evidence to suggest the position we find ourselves in is down to the current electoral system of thirds. I'm not saying it doesn't have an impact, but nobody's given me evidence that what we have been doing is the root cause of that. The other thing is, for example, if we were to go to all-outs today, and we have elections in May, we could be in exactly the same position we are now, in no overall control, and we will be so for 4 years, and we'll still be having the same arguments about budgets, even though we'll all be locked into that position for 4 years. No, thank you. I don't want that. I want strong, clear leadership. That's what I personally think is best for the council, and good decision-making. And I've tried to be as collaborative, and I'll continue to do so, whatever the position is, and I hope that goes for opposition parties as well. So I won't be supporting it. I'm just telling you there are a range of views, even in my own group, but I'm giving an assurance that I understand its significance, and I think that perhaps we should revisit this at another time as a collective group of people, and we can have some discussions amongst us group leaders as to how and when that might be. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Fitzgerald. May I call on Councillor Jameen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just find that odd comment at the end from Councillor Fitzgerald as to I might be for him, but just not right now. I wonder why that is. You know, in a year's time, circumstances might be different. And then we say we're asking everyone to take the politics out of this and look forward to what's best for the city today. Now, it's an odd situation. I've, done yearly elections for as long as I can remember. However, we have an opportunity. This council is actually at a crossroads. As Constitution Ethics Group, we're looking at the Constitution. We're looking to see how we can improve things. And this would be just one other factor that we would consider, and I think we should consider seriously and move to, in order to reflect what the will of the people of Peterborough is, because, you know, you may not like consultations. You know, we got this many people. Other consultations, you don't even get that many people replying. So therefore, I would strongly urge, in light of the fact of the savings that we would make, that people will vote for a change of the system and go to all-out elections, and then we can haggle over as to when they're going to come in afterwards.
Councillor Dennis Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My declaration of interest in, having just been re-elected in May, do I want another election next May? No, I don't. But there's two phrases I'd like to draw your attention to. One is, if you're familiar with it, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I think this is an opportunity. There are, as Councillor Hogg said, there's elements of our MP's letter that I can't disagree with. I'm not saying I'm overly a great fan of, and possibly as Councillor Fitzgerald again, it may not change the situation of no over-control. But equally, we must avoid, it must be right because of, well, we've always done it that way. And I think it was Jamil just said, we're at a crossroads, and this is an opportunity for us not only to save money, yes, but I think also to think and act differently. And that is where I would suggest that we put our stake in the ground. We can't go forward looking in the rearview mirror. Let's move forward and let's go to all-out elections. And if you look in the paper, it's 5 years, and if it turns out to be an unmitigated disaster, which personally I don't think it will be, then we could always go back to thirds. But let's give it a try, suck it and see, just as I'm doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. If there isn't any other speaker, may I call upon Councillor Steve Allen to speak and second the motion.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got very little to add. I support totally the points raised by the leader, but I will just add that I think the way forward for the Council to achieve sustainability is cooperation across the chamber, across all parties with the improvement panel. That is the crucial direction of travel. And the letter from our MP, Paul Bristow, indicated that the governance problem at the City Council is no overall control, not the electoral cycle. And I think we should bear that in mind. So strong governance is the important thing. And being magnanimous towards the smaller parties, I take on board my Liberal friends in the chamber that we should think about the smaller parties and the way that they are able to conduct elections. So I will not be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. May I call upon Councillor Coucil to conclude?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've had an interesting debate exploring all of the positions for, against, and alternative views about maybe but not now. So I think we should go to the vote. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. May I call upon the...
Mr. Mayor,
Rachel?
just can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
A recorded vote, yeah.
I was going to ask, would anybody like to do a recorded vote? Councillor Jamil, you propose? Any seconder, please? Lots of seconders. Councillor Robinson, seconds. Okay, thanks. Thank you. As per Standing Order 24.5 for a recorded vote, 1/4 of members present must agree. Could all members who agree that recorded vote should take place for the agenda item 3, please raise their green cards for me now? And my team will count them for you, so bear with. Thank you, members. That's 22 members requesting a recorded vote, which is more than 1/4 of members present this evening. Therefore, members, when I read your name, please turn on your microphone and state whether you are voting for, against, or abstaining from the vote. We are voting on recommendations 1 to 3. Okay? 1 to 3. Yeah. Do you want to tick as well? Can you tick as well? Are we going? Okay. So, first one, Councillor Ansar Ali.
4.
Councillor Imtiaz Ali.
4.
Councillor Jackie Allen.
Against.
Councillor Steve Allen.
Against.
Councillor Ayres.
Against.
Councillor Barkham.
Against.
Councillor B.
4.
Councillor Andrew Bond.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Bond.
Against.
Councillor Burbidge.
Against.
Councillor Casey.
Against.
Councillor Sereste.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Coles.
Against.
Councillor Day.
Against.
Councillor Dowson. Councillor Elsey.
Abstain.
Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Against.
Against. Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Sagiba Farouk.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Fenner.
Against.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Against.
Councillor John Fox.
For.
Councillor Judy Fox.
4.
Councillor Harper. Councillor Hasib.
4.
Councillor Hemraj.
4.
Councillor Hiller.
Abstain.
Councillor Hogg.
Against.
Councillor Howard.
Against.
Councillor Hussain.
Against.
Councillor Iqbal.
4.
Councillor Jamil.
4.
Councillor Alison Jones.
4.
Councillor Dennis Jones.
4.
Councillor Knight.
Against.
Councillor Lane.
4.
Councillor Moyo.
Against.
Councillor Gul Nawaz.
Against.
Councillor Shaz Nawaz.
4.
Councillor Over. Councillor Perkins.
Against.
Councillor Kayoum. 4. Councillor Ranzeb.
Against.
Councillor Ray.
Against.
Councillor Robinson.
4.
Councillor Rush.
Against.
Councillor Sabia.
4.
Councillor Sainsbury.
Against.
Councillor Sanford.
Against.
Councillor Seeger.
Against.
Councillor Shahid.
Against.
Councillor Sharp. Councillor Simons.
Against.
Councillor Skibstead.
Against.
Councillor Tyler.
Against.
Councillor Warren.
Against.
Councillor Wiggin.
Against.
Councillor Yazin.
4, please.
4. And Councillor Yogatini.
4.
Thank you. Can you bear with us while we work the figures out, please? Thank you. Thank you, members. Thank you. So the vote for recommendations 1 to 3, the results are 19 in favour, there were 35 against and 4 abstentions. Therefore, this has been defeated. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that. It's the end of the extraordinary meeting. We'll now have a 15-minute break before the ordinary meeting begins. Thank you. it... Okay, thank you. Please be seated. Welcome, members, those in the public gallery and those watching on the live stream. I'll now hand over to Rachel Edwards to go through some housekeeping points.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you. Can all those present please ensure that all mobile phones are set to silent? In the event of an evacuation, please exit through the doors on both sides of the chamber, following council staff to the assembly point. As per normal rules, if you wish to speak, please ensure that you raise your hand and you'll be invited to address the meeting. The Mayor has confirmed that he's happy for members to remain seated when addressing the chamber. All votes will be taken via the electronic voting system this evening for this meeting. If a recorded vote is requested, this will be taken in the normal way. There is the points document. If you wish to raise a point, please raise the pink document and address the Mayor accordingly, stating which point you are raising. Finally, I'd like to remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that when you speak, you are using your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have two apologies, Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members this evening which are not already recorded separately on their individual register of interests? There one, yes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I don't need to formally declare an interest, but in respect of the motion that I'm proposing on PR for local council elections, I would like to draw members' attention to the fact that it's recorded in my register of interest that I'm a member of the Electoral Reform Society.
Thank you, Councillor. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of July 2022. I would like to move approval of the minutes from the 27th July 2022. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second those for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there no objections? I will take that as agreed. Yeah. Agenda item 4, Mayor's announcements. Since our last meeting, I, along with the Mayoress, Deputy Mayor and Deputy Mayoress, have attended several events organised in the community, including from June to September, I hosted Fly the Flag ceremonies for the Falklands, the Windrush Generation, the Armed Services, the National Health Service and the Red Ensign. The mayoral party hosted open days in the reception rooms of the Town Hall on the 9th and 30th of September. These open days were aimed at pensioner groups. On the 4th of October, the mayoral party celebrated the annual event of the opening of Bridge Fair and the Sausage Supper. I would also like to remind members that they are invited to join the mayoral party at the forthcoming civic events. The Armistice 2-minute silence on the 11th of November and Remembrance Sunday on the 13th of November. Agenda item 5, Leaders' Announcement. Councillor Fitzgerald, I understand you wish to make an announcement this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If Council indulges me for a few moments, that's all positive news. I'd like to start by mentioning 2 council staff members who were shortlisted in the 3rd annual Peterborough Apprenticeship Awards hosted by the Peterborough Telegraph. Asif Ali, Development Manager Officer, and Maria Crow, Licensing Officer, were both shortlisted for the category Health and Public Service Apprentice of the Year, so many congratulations to both of them. To date, across the council, including our schools, we've had 66 colleagues successfully complete an apprenticeship, and currently there are more than 60 colleagues completing one. Congratulations also go to Peterborough's Serco Strategic Partnership for winning Most Improved Team of the Year at the IRRV Performance Awards last Wednesday. In 2021, the business rates team have delivered exceptional outcomes and achieved the second most improved collection rate in the country. I'd also like to mention Sam Smith, our Assistant Director of IT and Digital Services, who will be speaking at the annual conference for the Linked Organisation of Local Authorities in Christchurch, New Zealand in November. She has also been nominated for the long list to be one of the top 50 most influential women in the UK tech industry by Computer Week. In other news, following an extensive nationwide search, Adrian Chapman was recently appointed as the Council's first Executive Director for Place and Economy, and I think a round of applause is probably warranted here for Adrian. Adrian joins Matt Gladstone, our Chief Executive, as part of the slimmed-down executive team of 5. Maybe I should join it. I might get a bit slimmer. That's set to help deliver this Council's ambitious plan to ensure financial sustainability and deliver improved opportunities for the city. Since the last meeting, it's been announced that even more government money is coming to Peterborough. We've been awarded £1.8 million to deliver a third phase of the Household Support Fund to support even more people struggling with the rising costs of living. We've also been successful in drawing down more than £2.9 million to support rough sleepers off our streets and into accommodation. In addition, 2 more impressive projects have just been given the green light by government as part of the Towns Fund initiative. Plans for a new activity facility and green technology centre received positive feedback from DLUC, and £3.5 million is now to Peterborough to help fund them. We've also been named as one of 75 local authorities to be awarded government funding for family hubs to provide wider family support services via physical buildings, outreach services and digitally. The £3.4 million offer from Government Family Hubs and Start for Life Fund will help improve the way family help services are run in the city and enhance the service offering for families by providing whole family support such as parenting programs and mental health advice for new mums. It will empower families to support their children's development by providing easy access to information and self-help resources. Just a couple of paragraphs left, folks. In further good news, known for leading the government's response for COVID-19, Professor Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer for England, visited Peterborough recently to learn more about how we and our partners are working together for better health outcomes for our communities. Professor Whitty was particularly interested in the excellent work we are doing to identify health issues as early as possible and said that he was keen to continue working with colleagues in Peterborough on workplace health and adolescent health. And finally, I know it's only October, but I must mention that our Christmas lights switch on in Cathedral Square will be happening on Friday the 18th of November with a giant tree personally selected by Councillor Steve Allen and a few fairies that went with him. You may have seen the video of Councillor Allen choosing the tree on the Council's Facebook page. Cathedral Square will also feature an ice rink surrounded by the fabulous festive stalls as announced earlier in the year. Much of this is being paid for by sponsors, reducing the cost to the Council. And Mr Mayor, it would be remiss of me if we also didn't give a round of applause to all those people I mentioned early on in this speech for all the great work they did as well and their efforts. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Group leaders, you will have 1 minute in which to respond. Councillor Shaz Nawaz.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Leader, for your observations. We agree on many things, but it's clear that we all agree that our staff work exceptionally hard and they always go above and beyond. So I want to extend congratulations on behalf of the Labour group to Serco, because every time I've contacted them personally, they've always gone above and beyond the call of duty. And I also want to extend my thanks and also recognise the achievements and accolades of all the individual members Councillor Fitzgerald has mentioned. I'm clearly delighted that Adrian has become Executive Director. He works extremely hard, and having him in this post will strengthen the Council even further. And well done to all the officers for securing government funding. I know from experience how much work, effort and energy that takes, and I'm sure that funding will help improve the lives of many residents. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I'll reserve any comment on the Christmas tree until I've seen it physically for obvious reasons.
Thank you. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to echo the thoughts already put across. That we are very lucky in the hard work that the officers of this council do for us. If it was just down to councillors, I'm not sure what kind of rewards we would be getting. So it's really good that we've got this new slot now that where that their hard work can be announced and appreciated. I'd like to echo also the words about Adrian Chapman's new position, and I'm sure he's more than capable of rising to the challenge of that new role. Very popular officer indeed. It's also good that we are continuing to find different sources of money at a time where money in other areas are getting tighter and tighter. So it's really good that we're keeping ahead of looking for where pots of money are to be found, and then using those pots of money in a good way for the betterment of our city. Finally, I just would like to say that hopefully the new tree will be better than last year's tree, obviously the leader has already passed responsibility to the deputy just in case it's not. So I look forward to seeing that new tree in its position and maybe have a go at the ice rink. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hogan. May I call upon Councillor Harper?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I echo the other leaders' comments. We welcome as a group these announcements. They're particularly positive news for our city. We'd particularly like to congratulate Asif and Maria on their hard work, which has resulted in them being shortlisted for the Peterborough Apprenticeship Awards, and Sam for being nominated to be included in the most influential women's list, and we wish them all very well. We'd also like, though, to congratulate and not forget the colleagues that have helped them get to where they are, for working with them, for sharing their skills and knowledge, so to aid their development. We also like to thank officers for all their hard work in delivering some of these excellent results. We, of course, very much welcome the appointment of Adrian Chapman into his new role. We wish him the very best of success. Regarding the Christmas tree, we totally understand that the city centre needs to have footfall. It needs the right sort of Christmas tree and light display, and we look forward to scrutinising how this sponsorship adds up and how much was from sponsorship and how much came from our money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And lastly, Councillor Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We welcome the good news from the leader. It's good to see awards for officers and staff teams, particularly the nomination for Sam Smith as one of the 50 most influential women in the UK tech industry. We're also pleased to see the 2.9 million drawdown to support rough sleepers into accommodation, and especially pleased to hear about the 3.5 million on its way to help fund a new activity and Green Technology Centre. We as Greens see this type of investment as crucial in the city, as we are keen to see the city lead on both the development, manufacturing and retrofitting of zero carbon technologies. We congratulate Adrian Chapman, who has always been extremely supportive to our group. We also welcome the Growth Resources and Communities Independence Improvement and Assurance Panel report, as well as a Sustainable Future Strategy and Priorities Plan to be discussed at this meeting. And we also want to add that we hope that the Christmas tree was found from a sustainable source. Thank you.
Councillor Day. Agenda item 6, questions with notice by members of the public. There have been 2 questions submitted by members of the public to this meeting. Neither Ms. O'Bradovich or Ms. O'Long are in attendance this evening, and therefore both questions will be answered in writing and attached to the minutes. Agenda item 7, petitions. Those presenting petitions this evening will have 1 minute to outline their petition requests. Are there any petitions from the public? I don't believe so. No? Thank you. Are there any petitions from members? No. Thank you. Agenda item 8A and B and C, questions on notice. There have been 7 questions submitted by members this evening. All questions have been published on the council website and will be taken as read. Question 1 from Councillor Hogg. Councillor Ayres, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to the ARU Peterborough attendance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly would. And thank you, Councillor Hogg, for your question, which gives me the opportunity to confirm that Peterborough's new university opened its doors, I'm delighted to say, on schedule a few weeks ago, with teaching capacity for 846 students in specialist labs and teaching rooms. ARU Peterborough received over 1,600 applications to start courses this autumn and is expecting to support more than 950 learners this trimester. This includes up to 650 students based at University House, and other provision includes short courses and work-based learning. The aim remains to reach 5,000 students by 2028, and every effort will be made by the partners, including this council and its officers, to support this growth. Unlike many universities, a large number of courses at ARU Peterborough have 2 main start dates, in September and January, providing greater flexibility for students. Plans have already been submitted for the next phase of teaching space, which of course is the 3rd building, including a living lab, which will further increase teaching capacity. Thank you.
I do. So of those 846 students, how many of those would have been going to the Guild House site, which has now been closed? And essentially, what I'm trying to get to is, what is the actual uplift in number of students across those 2 sites? Do you know?
Councillor Hogg, I don't have the answer to that at the present time, because all of these things are having to be looked into in some considerable detail this first term, but I'm very happy to meet with you subsequently and give you such information as we get from the university itself, of course, including any response you want in relation to the cost-benefit analysis as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2 from Councillor Day. Councillor Simons, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Day in relation to sewage dumping?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to answer this question, but I think it should go to the member for Climate Change, Planning, Housing and Transport, as listed in the paperwork.
Councillor Day, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, yeah, so
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a response to Councillor Day, it's Anglian Water is responsible for the treatment and management of sewage across the Peterborough area. The Environment Agency is responsible for the local river. Therefore, both agencies would be the best place to provide a detailed answer as to whether or not there have been any impacts on the local area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've put a link to the Rivers Trust maps, which shows where sewage network discharges and treated sewage and overflow of untreated sewage has been released into our rivers. So at Peterborough Northminster, the sewer storm spilled 2 times for a total of 12 hours, discharging into the River Nene. At Peterborough Oundle Road in 2021, the overflow spilled 38 times for a total of 144 hours, discharging into the River Nene. At Peterborough Orton Mere, the sewer storm spilled 4 times for a total of 65 hours, discharging into the Trib River Nene. And at Oldswater Avenue, the sewer storm overflow spilled twice for a total of 5 hours, discharging into the Warrington Brook. This information's on the Rivers Trust site, and there's a map that shows you where these discharges have taken place. I am aware it's Anglian Water, but I'm sure we're all aware that of not only the health risks to humans, but also the devastating impacts on nature these spills have. Is there any way that we as a council can pressure Anglian Water and the Environment Agency to prevent sewage being spilt into our local rivers?
Thank you for that, Councillor Day. The only thing that I can really suggest is perhaps we get together and see if we can come up with a plan.
That's it, yep. Question 3 from Councillor John Fox. Councillor Fitzgerald, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor John Fox in relation to the Cabinet Advisers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to respond to this question from Councillor Fox about Cabinet Advisers, but I'm really disappointed, I have to say, to be answering this question tonight. As we're all aware, a key recommendation of the External Assurance Governance Review, which was undertaken on behalf of DLUC, was to complete a finance and governance review to improve matters in the council. Part of this review was to bring fresh energy as well as a new approach with valuable expertise and leadership for the council. And Councillor Fox, you are correct in saying the council has produced a 4-point plan, with the official name being the Sustainable Future City Council Strategy. We, as a council, all support financial sustainability and our journey to get there. But again, I am disappointed with the wording to your question relating to disbanding the privileged and unneeded cabinet advisers, which to those involved is offensive and insulting. This year I consolidated the portfolios in my cabinet, which in turn gave executive members more ownership and responsibility for wider areas within the council. Furthermore, the improvement panel's journey for Peterborough also incorporates longer-term thinking, diversity, inclusion and succession planning, and therefore bringing on expertise and encouraging it from the wider administration to support cabinet members is a vital part of this process. I can confirm that all cabinet advisers, or deputy cabinet members, whichever you want to call them, add value and support to the executive member and the rest of my cabinet, as well as officers, and also gain valuable experience and knowledge for possible future cabinet positions. Councillor John Howard wouldn't be in the position he was in unless he'd gone through that process, and Ray Bisbee also is in the same position. So should something, forgive me, Lynn, happen, in terms of a mishap, it's only because I'm aligning it to that role, then there are people there that can step up to the job. And I would also remind members, the cost of my cabinet and cabinet advisors or deputy cabinet members remains within the overall council's budget for this. Had I not got 6 or 7 cabinet advisors, I would have 10 cabinet members. So to me, it seems very good value that we're getting 13 people for the price of 10. And each one of those people contributes and has responsibilities. The latest one, of course, being Councillor Nicole Moyo, who has been mentioned rather unfairly and feels grossly offended by it, that she is a very smart lady, training to be a solicitor. One of the things that we've been criticised for is the lack of governance oversight, and those skills will be very useful to Councillor Coles when we're talking about governance and legal matters. And I feel that very pertinent, and it would be the same with any other skill sets within the Conservative group that needs nurturing and bringing on. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor John Fox, would you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time of unprecedented financial chaos for this council, an enormous black hole, the current leader decides it's okay to spend even more taxpayers' money on cabinet advisors' roles, making it now 6 cabinet advisors at the cost of £48,000 per year to the taxpayers of this city. How in name can he or any of us justify this to the residents of this city, especially to the hard-working officers of this council who are desperately trying to keep to incredible difficult spending budgets Please explain to me, please, how this is a case of permanent austerity. It doesn't quite match.
It's about vision, Councillor Fox. It's about vision and leading the council towards financial sustainability. And it's about getting the very best out of the team that you have around us. So if I could do it with less people, I would do, but I've realigned. So I'll take Councillor Cole's portfolio, for example, which you maligned. Andy Coles did not have property or legal and governance and a variety of other things in the portfolio. So he's taken on more responsibility and needs some help to shoulder that load. So I brought in somebody that can add some expertise to that. It's about running the council properly and efficiently with the right people. We are not spending any more money, and if people want to open the can of worms about allowances, I'll go there if you want to, because there are people in this chamber that perhaps would be embarrassed if we start that conversation because of conversations we've had previously about allowances. And I will praise, by the way, Lucinda Robinson for her selfless view on allowances. She's the only member in this chamber that refused to take an SRA. So let me get that on the record. She is the only one that is not taking a special responsibility allowance. Yet all the crowing from opposition members previously. So let's not go there, because every single member in this chamber that is entitled to an allowance is taking it. Some are taking slightly less. Councillor Harper, I understand, is not taking his full allowance, and that's also laudable. But hang on. If you want to open that can of worms, let's do so. But we've buried it, and we are going with the panel's recommendations. That's the independent panel, and we should stick with that, otherwise we get into a whole load of trouble. I've already said we are within budget, and I've got some very talented people in the Cabinet doing their very best, working with me and opposition members to try and improve this council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 4 from Councillor Skipstead. Councillor Suresti, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Skipstead in relation to cycling routes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Increasing the number of people walking and cycling is a priority for this council because, of course, it has so many other positive benefits, such as improving people's health and well-being, as well as reducing, of course, our carbon emissions. We are developing options that will improve walking and cycling connections in the city centre, for example, to our new university. These improvements will require significant engineering works, so they will be expensive to construct. However, it is important that we put ourselves in the best possible position for future funding. So I would support the improvements to the university going on into our local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. The growth in that part of the city now gives us the economic benefits needed to seek external funding for these improvements.
Councillor Skipstead, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. Data from the Department of Transport shows that cycling is reducing in Peterborough, so it's clear we need to change at an unprecedented level, and yet progress on this has been slow. We have a target to promote active travel and bring the city to net zero carbon by 2030. So will the council, once the report by the Task and Finish group has been completed and has suggested improvements to city centre cycling, agree to prioritise and implement these changes in order to ensure cycling across the city becomes a real safe alternative, especially for the north-south link coming in from going across the city? Because at the moment, people have to get off and push the bikes. That's how it is currently. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I promised to have a look at it, and I promised we'll have a really good conversation about it, but I can't give you a blank cheque without seeing what it is that you propose.
Thank you. Question 5 from Councillor Judy Fox. Councillor Coles, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Judy Fox in relation to finding suitable land for a hydrotherapy pool?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Judy Fox, for your question. Just before I answer it, I think there might be a small typo here. I'm a bit of a stickler for getting names right, and it's Ranjit Mahamani, not Maharani. Of course, Maharani's is a restaurant that one of our members owns. So an obvious slip that might be made, but I just thought I'd want to be accurate there. Our property contractor, MPS, have been conducting a review of suitable options for land or assets that the council owns, and will be in touch with Mr Ranjit Mahamani shortly to discuss those outcomes. I'm sorry it hasn't happened at the moment, but it is due very shortly. But they also do recommend that he updates his details with all the local agents who may have suitable options already. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Judy Fox, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your reply. I'm very pleased that you are now speaking with Mr Ranj. But my concern is that you have found time to speak with others about building a suitable facility some time ago, but you have only now today found the time to speak to him. What exactly is going on? Please be transparent and let this council know what meetings have taken place with other interested parties, who they are, when those meetings took place, and why does it seem to us that Mr Ranj was being ignored? Thank you.
Councillor Coles, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Fox. I don't think there's an issue here, to be honest. I think that the time has been because our staff have been so busy in the property review overall. There's just been a little bit of a delay here. There have been one or two other delays, but for most of the issues, someone looking to build a hydrotherapy centre will need to work also with all the local agents to try and find suitable land, not just the council. So that's what I'm trying to encourage, is that Mr Mahamani looks at what's available commercially as well as within the council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Question 6 from Councillor Hogg. Councillor Coles, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to the council tax energy rebate scheme?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hogg, for your question. Based on existing council tax data and direct debit details that are held in April 2022, the council identified as eligible and paid 49,033 people automatically by BACS. A further 27,780 eligible households were identified, and an application form was made available to either collect bank details or for customers to request credits to be applied directly to their council tax account. 9,297 successful applications were received, resulting in 7,056 BACS payments and 2,241 council tax account credits being made. The remaining 18,483 eligible households who had not applied had the rebate applied to their council tax accounts at the end of July, reducing further instalments. In total, 76,813 households have been paid £150 either by BACS or council tax credit, totalling just over £11.5 million. And based on our council tax data, all eligible households have received this funding. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hogg. Do you have a supplementary
I'm more than
question?
happy with that. More than happy with that answer. Thank you very much.
You are. Thank you. Question 7 from Councillor John Fox. Councillor Steve Allen, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor John Fox in relation to antisocial behaviour?
Indeed, and thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor John Fox. Appreciate the question. These are all very valid queries, and it's important we get the information shared in order to reassure the public of our intentions. We are committed to continuously improving the quality of our city centre as a safe place for people to visit and enjoy their leisure time, support the wide retail offer, and enjoy the many bars and restaurants that are on the high street. Working alongside the police and business improvement district ambassadors, our new pilot city centre enforcement service will play its part in keeping the city centre feeling vibrant and dynamic as well as safe. There are 4 officers working Wednesday to Sunday for a 6-month trial period between the hours of 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. The officers are able to fully enforce the public space protection order in the city, which includes enforcing restrictions on street drinking, littering and cycling in unauthorised areas. We have commissioned a local company to deliver this trial, who employ well-trained staff and in turn are equipped with the necessary PPE and body cams. The staff also have direct access to our CCTV control room through their radios. With regard to the question about the cost, I'm unable to share the contract value. As you'll understand, this is commercially confidential. Thank you, Councillor Fox.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After a year and a half of this current administration, we still suffer the blight of drunkenness, antisocial behaviour, drug use and begging in our city centre. Rather than what could be perceived by some as weak announcements that may only end up as being effective in the short term, with no long-term effect, is just not good enough or cost-effective, as we have all seen this happen in the past. What the public need and want is more bobbies back on the beat. Police patrolling our city centre on foot, 24/7, helping to combat the fear of crime, which is more important sometimes than the actual crime, because the fear of crime does a lot more damage at times. And helping to make our city centre feel safer for pedestrians, the elderly, and all those that visit our city. Who in higher authority have you contacted directly to press the government for more desperately needed funding to match the increasing growth of our city and the increased numbers of population compared to the ratio of new police officers we see coming through? I ask you, when will our residents get the true protection they already pay for and truly deserve?
Your mic went off, Mayor, but I got the gist of it. You'd like me to respond to the supplementary from Councillor Fox. And Councillor Fox, we agree. We need more bobbies on the beat. Certainly via our MP, representations are made to government to have further policing in our city. Further numbers are important. We indeed have ourselves engaged with the Chief Constable, along with Paul Bristow MP, with a couple of meetings, as well as with the Police and Crime Commissioner, to find funds to bring more coppers into our main street. What I would say is that this team that we've put into play, we are, by negotiation, having police support for this new group of officers, we'll call them, that will be patrolling the streets. And I think all efforts to bring our city centre round to be a safer place should be applauded. And I think we're all on the same page with regard to this. Let's just make the place even more appealing to come and visit, day and night. Thank you, Councillor Fox, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Agenda item 8D, questions on notice. There has been one question submitted by members of this evening to the Combined Authority representative this evening. Question 1 from Councillor Hogg. Councillor Fitzgerald, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to stagecoach bus service cuts?
I'm happy to respond to Councillor Hogg in a personal manner as I could possibly do, because he's staring at me. We're very concerned about the actions taken by Stagecoach. It's created a lot of publicity. And I can assure you that steps have already been taken by the Combined Authority to put out to public tender every single one of the bus services surrendered by Stagecoach, with the intention of having all our bus services run by other operators from the changeover date of Sunday the 30th of October. All the tenders have been received and are being carefully evaluated. Stagecoach have been motivated by a large drop in revenue, minus 24% less passengers and 48% less concessionary bus pass use compared to pre-COVID times, and very little improvement is being detected in those numbers. Few companies in any industry could sustain such reduced revenue, and the government has recognised this with additional grants to all bus operators, which are coming to an end this winter, as we find the new normal. However, bus operators are also facing higher fuel costs, higher parts bills, higher insurance costs, and most importantly, a large ongoing shortage of bus drivers. By withdrawing their least profitable services, they are able to solve their driver shortages potentially at the expense of other bus operators who are also trying to step up and help us out on those routes abandoned by Stagecoach. The Combined Authority is very mindful of the importance of bus services for its residents, especially all those dependent on buses for getting to work or school, and therefore it has dug deep to find funds to fund this new bus network. But we are also looking ahead and trying to answer the question, what comes next? Where do we find the additional revenue money to fund bus services next year and thereafter? This is the authority's full attention, and the officers there are burning the midnight computing power, even though energy bills have risen, as they strive to solve all those issues. A point to note from Councillor Hogg, who questions about evening services. Stagecoach are paid in the order of £200,000 per annum to run the city's evening services, and that tender has not been returned, so will continue unaltered. Details of the new bus operators and any changes to times or routes will not be finalised straight away. They'll have to go through a 10-day standstill in procurement legislation before any announcements can be made as to who will run with what. As an addendum from myself to that, I've had some discussion with colleagues in group and the Chief Executive and our transport team about having a little, shall we say, exploratory discussion with all members about the state of bus services, the current state of play, where we are, what our responsibilities are, and what we can try and do to improve matters. So I'm extending that conversation to all members and will advise accordingly when we can get that organised, either for an all-party policy or an informal briefing, because I think members as a whole should get an understanding of bus services. I finished, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hogg.
Yes, thank you, Leader, for that informative answer. So I'm under the impression that, that certainly the 23 bus is being looked at by the Combined Authority, but the briefing I got from the Combined Authority made no mention of the I-Thorney bus services that have been severely cut. So I would hope that you would be chasing up on that. I also understand that the funding from the Combined Authority Mayor is to help overcome this situation will run until March of next year. And they are working up a solution that could mean that the Combined Authority Mayor would exercise his right to put a precept in of around £20 for a Band D house. And I just wanted to know, were you broadly in support of that, or did you think that was not something that you would want to bring forward?
That is not a Conservative Party policy, nor is it something as a Conservative group we have discussed. What the Mayor might do is what the Mayor might do, who is of course a Labour Mayor. So if the Labour Mayor wants to introduce a precept into the county of Cambridgeshire, that is a matter for him and he could probably do it. He's had no discussion with me or other members. I believe what you've heard is just, shall we say, speculation or some discussion, but as far as I'm aware, there is no decision. As far as your comments about the other buses, I'll refer you to what I said. All the things that have been surrendered are being looked at. But I think there is a longer discussion within the Combined Authority that needs to be had, and the Mayor needs to get his act together and put together a public transport policy.
Thank you. Agenda item 9A, Growth, Resources and Communities Scrutiny Committee, Independent Improvement and Assurance Panel Report, Agenda item 9A is in relation to the Independent Improvement and Assurance Panel report. Councillor Yazin, would you therefore like to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good evening, colleagues. The Council established the Peterborough City Council Independent Improvement and Assurance Panel on 16th of December 2021 and updated the terms of reference of the panel to report to the Council on a 6-monthly basis. The report provided the panel's first 6-monthly review of the work of the Council against the previously agreed improvement plan and the recommendations of the independent reports commissioned by the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. The Growth, Resources and Community Scrutiny Committee met on 20th of September 2022 and debated the report, and I'd like to take this opportunity and thank all members of the committee for their contributions on that evening. And we also debated the responses from the Cabinet. The Growth, Resources and Community Scrutiny Committee agreed with the actions and progress being made with the delivery of the improvement plan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly echo the words of the Chairman of the committee, and I would like to second the report.
Can I call upon any other speakers? Agreed, yes. Agenda item 9B, Cabinet Recommendations, Sustainable Future City Council Strategy and Priorities, 22 to 25. Agenda item 9B in relation to the Sustainable Future City Council Strategy. Councillor Fitzgerald, I understand you wish to alter the recommendations. I will hand over Rachel to go through this.
I think I do.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The alteration to this recommendation includes the addition of and refers them to a joint meeting of Council scrutiny committees for consideration, with any recommendations to be referred to the next available meeting of full Council, after the recommendation to endorse the strategy and priorities.
Thank you. Is there no objections to this alteration? Please, would you move your altered recommendations?
Yes, so moved, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yep. Councillor Steve Allen, would you second the recommendations and either speak now or reserve your right?
Happy to second and reserve my right, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. As Councillor Sanford no longer be moving his amendment, can I call upon any other speakers? Okay. Agenda item 9C, Constitution and Ethics Committee, Recommendations, Constitutional Updates. Agenda item 9, in relation to various constitution updates with specific recommendations set out in the Constitution and Ethics Committee Recommendations Report. Councillor Sandra, would you therefore like to move the recommendations?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendations of the Constitution and Ethics Committee. At a recent meeting, I think it was only last Thursday actually, we considered a number of aspects of the Council Constitution. And we actually looked at a number of aspects. We looked at the agenda structure for full council. We looked at the amount of time we have available for questions, and we looked at the amount of time you have to give when you submit a motion. In those aspects, we decided not to recommend any further changes, but we are intending to keep those aspects under review. The changes that we did put forward were number one, to allow councillors discretion on how they wish to be addressed. This would include allowing the mayor the discretion as to whether they're addressed as Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, or alternatively as mayor followed by their surname. We think that's an element of flexibility that should be introduced. The second recommendation that we put forward is in respect of recommendations from Employment Committee to appoint a chief officer or a deputy chief officer. We would recommend removing the 2 clear days notice which is required to give to cabinet that cabinet members have to give if they wish to raise any objection to an appointment. This has now been updated to allow the leader to confirm at the appropriate time when the interviews have taken place that he does not have any objections. In making this recommendation, we're conscious of the fact that the leader normally sits on the Employment Committee and is normally accompanied by the cabinet member with that area of responsibility. So I therefore recommend those to full council. Just wanted to add one further point. In looking at the council constitution, members of the committee are aware that there are a number of inconsistencies, that there are things in one part of the constitution that contradict something elsewhere in the constitution. So as part of the committee's work programme, we are intending to conduct a review of the constitution. Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, I second the motion.
Yeah. Can I call upon any other speakers? Agreed. Yeah. Agenda item 9D, Constitution and Ethics Committee recommendations, appointment to outside bodies and appointment of council champions. Agenda item 9D is in relation to appointment outside bodies and appointment of council champion with specific recommendations set out in the Constitution and Ethics Committee recommendation report. Councillor Sanford, I understand you wish to alter the recommendations. I will hand over to Rachel to go through this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The alteration to this recommendation includes the removal of that the Constitution be amended so that appointments to outside bodies be agreed at annual council, as is to be discussed further by the committee.
Moved your alterations, recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will wish to move the recommendations formally.
Yeah. Councillor Jamil, would you like to second the recommendations? And
Certainly
speak?
would, sir.
You do so.
Yeah.
I call upon any other speakers. No? Agreed. Agenda item 9E, Constitution Ethics Committee recommendations, Civic Protocol, Declaration of Mayor. The Constitution Ethics Committee did not make any recommendations to the Council in relation to this item. Therefore, we will move on. Agenda item 9F, Constitution and Ethics Committee recommendations, amendments to the contract rules. Agenda item 9E in relation to various amendments to the contract rules with recommendations set out in the Constitution and Ethics Committee recommendation report. Councillor Sanders, would you therefore like to move the recommendations?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendations. Members of the Constitution and Ethics Committee discussed and debated a change to the Council's contract rules as set out in the Constitution. Following these discussions, the committee agreed to recommend the following to full council to actually change the contract rules as set out in Appendix A. This would allow the contract rules to be changed to actually only require a competitive process where the contract has a value of more than £25,000. And anything under £25,000 can be awarded on the basis of just one quote. The figure in the Constitution at the moment is only 5,000. And the committee was conscious of the financial pressures that the council's under, and it was felt that having such a low threshold was imposing too great an administrative burden. The change was supported by the corporate director of resources and also the director of law and governance, and so I'm pleased to recommend this change to council.
Councillor Jamil.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second.
Yeah. Can I call upon any other speakers? Agreed. Yeah. Thank you. Agenda item 10, questions on the executive decisions made since the last meeting. This is in relation to the record of the executive decision detailed on pages 133 to 136 of your agenda pack. The leader will introduce this item and any questions will be answered by the leader unless he refers them to another member. I would remind councillors that they should ask questions on the decisions in the report. All questions should be relevant to the decision itself. Should I feel that any preamble is unreasonably long, I will instruct councillors to ask their questions immediately. Can members please note that once I have moved on, the questions will not be accepted from the previous pages. Councillor Fitzgerald, would you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I will leave it to you to take it page by page as read for now.
Yes. I will take each page in turn, and would members please refer to the title or reference number of the decision when asking a question. Page 133. 100. Councillor. Okay, yes. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick question on the Peterborough youth zones. I understand that there was a number of sites identified. I just wanted to know, have we got any closer to zoning that down to a specific site yet?
Councillor Allen may have the details on that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hogg, and thank you, Leader. No decision has been made as yet. All sites are still under review.
Page. Oh, do you wish to?
Still on that page. Just about the asset disposal and review plan, I just wanted to get confirmation that this now means that the community asset transfer scheme can now get moving again, as they didn't feature on that list.
Councillor Coles will take that, Mr Mayor.
In brief, yes.
Yeah. 136. No. Okay, that concludes that section. Agenda item 11, questions on the combined authority decisions made since the last meeting. This is in relation to the record of the combined authority decision detailed in the additional information pack. I will refer any questions to the relevant combined authority representative. Otherwise, the same rules will apply as the previous item. I will take each appendix in turn, and the council members please refer to the title of the decision when asking a question. Appendix 1, Audit and Governance. No? Appendix 2, Overview and Scrutiny. Appendix 3, Combined Authority. Appendix 4, Combined Authority again. That concludes that section agenda. Agenda item 12, motions on notice. A motion from Councillor Imtiaz Ali. Councillor Imtiaz Ali, would you like to move your motion set out on the agenda in the agenda pack?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move my motion, and would you like me to introduce it now?
Yes.
So this motion is, I think it's a very important motion. I think it's an opportunity for us to outline how impressed we are with the resilience of the workforce here in the local government. It talks about the real term reduction in pay since 2010 that has been suffered by local government workers, something that we do need to recognise. If you look up and down the country, you'll see people are joining picket lines, people are on strike. You've got the rail workers, you've got the posties, you've got the dockers, and recently even the nursing, the College of Nursing have started consultation as well. You've got to ask yourself what's going on, and I guess the common theme here is people are fed up, people are being forced to accept pay rises which are substandard and below RPI, and they're not really being backed. I think us as a local council, you know, we do a great job of applauding our excellent officers and our excellent employees, just like we were clapping for the NHS, but clapping doesn't pay bills, and we really need to back our superheroes. Since I've been a councillor, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of colleagues at the council across finance, planning and environment. And what I can say is they all show a lot of passion, a lot of commitment, and they're very, very competent. We need to recognise this. So when it comes to things like pay disputes, absolutely we can't get involved in the specifics. But as an indication of where we stand as a council, you know, we gave rounds of applause to a number of colleagues earlier on in this meeting. And I'd like to, you know, not just give them a round of applause, but also let them know that we've got their back and we absolutely support their claims and whatever they choose to vote for. The final section is on encouraging our employees to join a union. In the absence of a union, they're really going to be struggling, and they'll be dealing with each of these issues as individuals rather than as a collective, and we need to encourage them to do that. So, yes, I'd like very much for my colleagues to support this motion.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Skipstead, would you second the motion and either speak now or reserve your right to speak later on in the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will second this motion and reserve my right to speak later. Thank you.
May I call upon any other speakers? Yeah. Councillor Hemraj? Yeah, please.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Imtiaz Ali for bringing this motion forward to Council. Being a fellow trade unionist for the NHS, this makes perfect sense for lobbying government to pay the NJC award. If the government fund the NJC award, this will allow extra funding from the local government funds to pay for more services. The NHS pay award is paid centrally from government. I can't see why the government can't fund local government's pay awards. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call upon Councillor Coles to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I saw the original motion, not the one that's published, I was a little bit concerned. And so I did ask a few questions about what this motion was aiming to deliver. And I'm focusing on delivery. I'm not necessarily focusing on the sentiment, because I think we all agree that we do wish all of our employees to be paid suitably. But I thought I'd go over some of the details here so all members understand the sort of work that's done within Council to support our workers. Peterborough City Council operate under a National Joint Council terms and conditions for the majority of employees, and we're therefore bound by national negotiations, and we cannot unilaterally step away from this without appropriate negotiation. Since 2011, it's been the Council's strategy to protect the lower paid. However, we do recognise that the NJC Pay Award for 2021 has resulted in the bottom pay point reaching £9.50, which is the statutory national living wage, which increased on the 1st of April 2022. That means that the gap that we've tried to maintain as national employers has gone down from a peak of 79 pence per hour in 2019. The national employers do not believe that local government should be a minimum wage employer, just to reassure everybody, and it's a view shared by this council. The council has already provided the Local Government Association with our view on the pay claim, so why would we do it again? Received from the joint trade union side and made allowances in the budget for future pay increases. For 2022, the national employers have made a one-year final offer to the unions with the most significant financial implication that with effect from the 1st of April 2022, an increase of £1,925 on all NJC pay points, which would occur if this is agreed by all participants on the union side. Local government workers' pay is rightly high on the agenda of the LGA, with the LGA organising 2 regional briefings in March and June this year to keep councils informed of the national negotiations and to allow us to give feedback alongside the usual consultation routes through ELGA surveys. The LGA encourages information from the briefings to be shared with the leadership team and elected members to raise awareness of the severity of the situation in relation to pay and local government. Any increase in pay significantly impacts on our schools as well as our directly employed workforce. It's important to note that the Council's employment practices also support staff in non-monetary ways, including looking after their well-being, improving their work-life balance, and providing access to a statutory pension scheme. The local government employers have previously and continue to request new money to fund pay increases, and this pay position would be no different. Councils across the country remain vociferous in requesting additional funding from central government for many areas, more recently specifically with regards to services such as social care. It's appreciated that as a result of the pandemic, the way unions interact with employees has changed as it has for employers. The Council continues to work closely with local trades unions to consider additional ways to support them. The net effect of this motion is, in all honesty, minimal. We're already collaborating with the LGA in its role to lobby central government on behalf of the whole LA sector. And the motion asks for the Council to send 2 letters, one to the Chancellor and one to the Secretary of State, seeking exactly what we have done through the LGA. I think sending 2 additional letters would seem to be completely unnecessary. To the final point, we do support workers who may wish to join a union, and we do already provide facilities already, so that union representatives can fulfil their role. So members, considering all that has been done to improve our staff pay and the work that's being done through the appropriate channels by the Chief Executive's team, I see no additional value in this motion, and I can't support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. May I call upon Councillor Quaker, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note with interest some of the comments that were made by Councillor Coles. I'd like to make an initial comment that it is fundamental in order to ensure an employee's well-being that they have financial security, and without them being able to have that financial security and the reassurance that they're going to be able to make ends meet at the end of the day and choose between heating and eating, that goal is, I think, it's going to be difficult to achieve that. So I respect the fact that we're looking into the well-being and work-life balance of local government employees, but without financial security, it's going to be difficult to achieve that. The second thing I'd like to give is a few statistics. There are 1 million children living in the United Kingdom today who are children of key workers, who are living in poverty. A lot of those children live here within the city. There are 65% of families that are affected by austerity within our city, and many of those are fending off the food banks within this city. And I'd also like to say that 4 out of 10 key workers also earn less than the minimum wage of £10. So it is for that reason that I will be wholeheartedly supporting this motion and would encourage other members to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. May I call upon Councillor Imtiaz Ali to conclude? Oh, Councillor Skip's ahead to... yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We in the Green Party will be fully supporting this motion. Members of the Green Party of England and Wales recently voted overwhelmingly to support the Enough is Enough campaign. This is a mass movement resisting the cost of living crisis. Enough is Enough has a set of 5 demands, and real pay rise for workers is one of the priorities, as well as slashing energy bills, ending food poverty, ensuring decent homes for all, and taxing the rich. Enough is Enough was launched by a coalition of organisations and MPs. In taking this decision, the Green Party became the first parliamentary party to formally endorse the Enough is Enough campaign. We all need to ensure everyone in all types of employment can manage through the crisis by supporting pay increases that truly reflect the rise in the cost of living and inflation rates to prevent unprecedented levels of poverty and suffering in this country, and certainly also in this city. It is also of vital importance that employees have the support of a union in these difficult times and that their voices are heard. I therefore urge members to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Imtiaz Ali, would you like to conclude, sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, thanks you for the people that have spoken on the motion. I think the key thing here is that initially the motion had a request of a minimum of £2,000 on each pay point, or RPI, whichever is greater. And if the average salary is around £28,000, RPI around 10%, you're talking about £2,800. The initial offer of £1,925 has gone back, and the amendment to this motion reflects that we, as a group of councillors, can't necessarily outline what the increase should be. All we can do is lend support to local government workers. It's an act of showing appreciation for the hard work that they do. Now, if the unions are in discussions with the parties to see if 1925 is accepted, then we leave them to make that decision. But we absolutely need to support the NJC. We need to continue to meet with them, and we, as a House, need to show their support. And just echo something that Councillor Shabina said around people living in poverty and food banks. There are a number of people, that are local government employees that are resorting to food banks. We need to stop the trend of a downward spiral and having people that are literally living in in-work poverty. We need to show them the support that they need, and we need to write all the letters that we need to in order to make sure that they get a fair pay increase. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to a vote. Rachel?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we're now moving to vote on the motion as moved by Councillor Imtiaz Ali in relation to public sector workers. We are moving to the electronic vote, so for those new members that have not used this system yet, to vote in favour, you need to press the green plus button. To vote against, it's the red minus button, and to abstain, it's the yellow button. Is the vote live, Jane? Yep. Okay, the vote is live. You should have... Sorry? No, it's fine. Excellent. It's a good start to the voting system. Yeah, the vote's live. Can you not press the microphone button, though, please, because you will crash the system. So if anything's not flashing blue, can you just let us know? Raise your hands. It should be flashing blue to be able to... Okay. Yep. Sorry about that. That's first test. The results are in. It is 25 in favour, 27 against, and there was 5. Therefore, this is defeated. Thank you.
Okay. Next item. Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Motion from Councillor Day. Councillor Day, I understand you wish to alter your motion to include an additional recommendation. I will hand over to Rachel to go through this.
Okay, thank you. Mr Mayor, the additional recommendation submitted as an alteration asks for a report to be submitted to the Climate and Change and Environment Scrutiny Committee in 12 months' time to review the Council's investment strategy and the pension scheme's progress with its responsible investment policy.
Thank you. If there is no objections to this alteration, please, would you move to your altered motion? Sorry, I'll read that again. But, yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, Council, my original intention for the motion was to ensure the Council and the Combined Authority completely divest from fossil fuels immediately, or from fossil fuel companies. However, after reading up on just transition policies and speaking to Councillor Coles, I've learned that the pension fund already has been working on responsible investment policies approach to dealing with fossil fuel companies. Rather than using punitive measures, it encourages companies to voluntarily move to green technologies, protecting the pension investment and avoiding early withdrawal charges. Councillor Coles and I had a couple of good conversations about this. The thinking behind Just Transition from a report brought by the International Labour Organization, the UN Environment Programme and the International Organization of Employers argues that Just Transition is essential to decarbonise the economy and to move towards more sustainable and more equal societies. Furthermore, it underlined the fact that the most radical and profound changes needed to achieve sustainable economies are related to redefining most jobs. A just transition means moving to a more sustainable economy in a way that's fair to everyone, including people working in polluting industries. Moving to a clean, green economy will create millions of jobs, but this needs dedicated time and financial support from politicians and businesses. And after I accepted Councillor Coles' amendment, I did get back in touch and felt that the motion needed to be slightly strengthened in acceptance of those amendments. I did this additional alteration, which is, as Rachel's read out, to bring a report to the Climate Change and Environment Scrutiny Committee in time to review the Council's investment strategy and the pension scheme's progress with its responsible investment policy. So I am happy to accept the amendments and ask Council to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Wiggins, will you second the motion and either speak now or reserve your right to speak later in the debate?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second this motion and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coles, I understand that you would like to move an amendment to the motion as set out in the additional information pack, taking into account the alteration to the motion from Councillor Day.
Thank you. Yes, Mr Mayor, that's correct. And I'm pleased to hear from Councillor Day that she's accepted the amendment in full.
Yep. Councillor Ray, will you second the amendment and either speak now or reserve your right to speak later in the debate?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second the amendment, and just shows what we can do when we all work together and talk to each other.
Thank you. Councillor Day, I understand that you are happy to accept the amendment, and if so, we'll move on the debate of the motion as amended, including this alteration to the contract. Agreed. Yeah. Okay, motion from Councillor Sandford. Councillor Sandford, would you like to move your motion set out in the agenda pack?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd very much like to move this motion, and I hope it won't be controversial at all. The winner-takes-all voting system used in England's local elections needs replacing. It creates one-party states, it distorts the views of the people, and it depresses voter turnout. In local council elections here in England, we use the first-past-the-post voting system, whereas in Scotland, they use the single transferable vote system, known as STV. Northern Ireland uses the same one, and quite interestingly, under the Local Government and Elections Wales Act, since 2020, councils in Wales have the options to change their voting system if they so choose. So in the United Kingdom, England is very much an outlier in retaining first past the post. How does STV work up in Scotland? Each ward has 3 or 4 councillors, so we already have 3-member wards here in most parts of Peterborough, so a single transferable vote could easily be implemented without any major ward boundary changes. The individual voter ranks their candidates in order of preference. This means they can express a preference between candidates of one party as well as a preference between parties. So a single transferable vote puts more power in the hands of individuals. There is some complexity in the counting process, but as far as the voters are concerned, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. And there's also clear evidence that the introduction of PR in Scotland has produced greater fairness. Glasgow was a one-party state up to 2007, but in the most recent elections in Glasgow, the SNP got 37 seats, Labour 36, the Greens 10, and the Conservatives 2. Quite a number of councils in Scotland have coalitions, and these coalitions are often coalitions of a different combinations of parties. What's been found in Scotland is these power sharing that happens gives effect to what a majority of the voters actually support. It means that town halls benefit from increased political diversity and a clearer link between the number of votes cast to the number of seats obtained. This is borne out by the fact that in Scotland, in 2022, in the local elections, the average turnout was 45%, whereas here in Peterborough, in elections on the same day, the turnout was only 30%. There's a number of councils in England that's similar to Glasgow used to be our virtual one-party state. Manchester City Council is a classic example. In the most recent elections, Labour won 94 out of 96 seats. Now, whatever you think about the Labour Party, whatever you think about Manchester, having such a preponderance for one party is not healthy. Too many voters feel that their vote does not count and so don't bother to turn out. First past the post is a deeply unstable system where small changes in party support often lead to wild swings in party composition. If you have proportional voting under a system like SDV, it means if a party gets 30% of the vote, they get around 30% of the seats. We Liberal Democrats want to see proportional voting systems in elections all over the country. I'd like to mention to Labour Party members that your party conference a few weeks ago voted in favour of introducing PR in elections for local councils. So I hope Labour councils will be joining us in supporting this motion. Regretfully, the Conservatives want to keep the current voting system. Not only that, but as far as the combined authority is concerned, they want to change a proportional system that we currently have back to first past the post. So the case for PR in parliamentary elections can be argued about, but for all the reasons I've outlined, the case in local elections is overwhelming, and so I hope you'll support the motion that we're putting forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day, would you second the motion?
Yes, I'll second the motion. I reserve my right to speak.
Yeah. Would any other... Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sanford, for bringing such an important subject to discussion. While I understand that this motion seeks to discuss a matter for Parliament and national law, I would like to take this opportunity to express that we Conservatives take pride in the long history of democracy that our country fought for, leading the way as one of the best democratic nations in the world. First past the post, being a cornerstone of democracy, is a fair, inclusive, and simple plurality voting system in which the candidate who wins the most votes in each constituency and/or ward is elected. First past the post gives rise to geographical representatives, and in respect to a council, councillors representing defined wards are assessed by voters on their individual performance, retaining a relationship of accountability between residents and their councillor, as well as granting voters the power to vote for preferred candidates every year in elections by thirds. And finally, I would like to conclude by noting that first past the post creates a safeguard against extremism, giving rise to coherent single-party administrations with definitive and robust decision-making powers. Therefore, I strongly believe that first past the post is the best electoral system for local elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald? Yeah. Councillor Fitzgerald?
I agree with everything that Councillor Moyo said.
Any other speakers? Therefore, may I call upon Councillor Day? Oh, Councillor Jones, yes. Sorry.
It's okay, I was late. Thank you, Chair. Just to sort of add to this, yes, as with all things in politics, it does become something of a hearts and heads dilemma, and we don't know, as I said before, about changing the electoral system. We don't know until we try. You remember there was, in 2011, there was we went to the vote as a country about whether we had proportional representation. Sorry?
Point of information?
Sorry, I got too passionate.
A statement of accuracy?
Yeah, point of accuracy on Councillor Jones. The 2011 referendum was not on proportional representation. It was on alternative vote, which is not truly proportional.
It's
not similar.
Okay, we can split hairs, but the reality is that the point I'm making, which is against the point of order, is at that time I voted for first past the post. But having seen the way that the world has moved since then I think, yes, I think it's about time that we did look towards some kind of single transferable vote. We saw that in the recent mayoral election, where we've actually had a Labour mayor elected in what was otherwise seen as a safe seat. And oddly enough, the voting system has now been moved back to first past the post. Quelle surprise. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Shaz-Nuaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's evident that first past the post is beneficial to both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, both at central government level and on local government level. In saying that, as Councillor Jones has pointed out, my view is that PR is a more fair system. And thank you, Councillor Sanford, for reminding us all what happened at the Labour Party conference. And I'd like to remind you that I think your group ought to be a bit more consistent in how you do things, because All Outs didn't favour you as a small party, so you voted against it. PR is beneficial to you, and you expect all of the parties to support it because it benefits you, which isn't very consistent. So I hope you're going to reflect on that. But all things being equal, I think PR is a good way forward, and I urge members to support it.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and apologies to Councillor Jones for my passion before the 2011 referendum is still a sore point for those of us who were in the Liberal Democrats at that time. There's a couple of things I particularly like about proportional representation, and one of those is that you can retain a constituency link, such as they do in Ireland. And the advantage of the Ireland system is where you've got multiple members in a seat, you can choose your party, but you get a choice of candidates. So if you've got a bad candidate in your party, you can kick them out for one you prefer. You can't do that with first past the post if you only got one up, or if there's three up you don't like. So it does give more choice to voters. I'd also suggest that in the terms, as Councillor Sanford explained with Scotland, that proportional representation can give more stability by having people working together. It takes out extremes. I have to disagree with Councillor Moyo on that, because it means, particularly in a lot of European countries where we're more used to coalition governments. Look, for instance, at the European Parliament, where coalitions are enforced due to the size, extremist groups get pushed out. It's only when they can win on a majority that they can get through. And in the majority of countries, extremist groups get pushed to the side. And that's something that we can ensure happens with proportional representation here, because people will give, fair people who do not vote for extremists will give their choices to all the parties ahead of extremists. I'm very keen on proportional representation of giving everyone a vote. Lib Dem internal elections, it gets a bit ridiculous when you're going up to 50 candidates in some elections, but that's half of the fun. But yeah, and I think, as was mentioned before, we would support all-up elections if they were held under proportional representation, because that's fairer for everyone. It doesn't punish smaller parties. In fact, it gives them more chance to get in. For example, it gives some independent candidates more of a chance of fighting, because they can draw support from different parties, whereas they can't under first past the post. It's a lot harder for independent candidates to get in. And having a broader set of voices around the table is better for everyone. It's better for decision making. It's better for the residents. And I think it does provide a stability of people working together and reduces the extremes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. May I call upon Councillor Hogg to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A lot of the points that I would want to make have already been made by other people in the room. So, but I do want to just kind of touch on the fact that, you know, we have a situation where turnout, and certainly at a local election level, is woefully low. And I think that one of the reasons for that is that the electorate sometimes just feels that there is no point in going to vote for the people that you want to vote for, because they're just not going to get in. They feel that it's essentially going to be either a red or a blue or even a yellow or a green, for that matter, vote. They feel that, you know, that's the way it's been going for the last few years. And so if you don't agree with maybe the party that you think should be, you know, that you think is going to get in, there's a disenfranchisation. I'll get my teeth in. Disenfranchisation from the electorate. They feel there's no point in voting. So I think that PR is definitely something that will, you know, get rid of that barrier. And I do think that we do need to make sure that we can look to remove barriers so that people feel more able to go and vote for their representatives.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Day?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Britain has a democratic deficit. It is one of the few countries that supports first past the post. The use of first past the post has led to recurring UK parliaments that have failed to represent how people have voted. This stands in stark contrast to our European neighbours who have achieved better representation of women and minorities as well as a greater satisfaction with democracy. In fact, PR countries outperform majoritarian ones in many ways, including climate policy, peacefulness, income equality and economic performance. The UK has a disproportional system of voting. Most EU nations use forms of PR for elections. European countries that use PR make the UK look outdated. In the vast majority of such countries, parties win MPs in proportion to the votes they receive, and this should be the case in our local council elections. PR genuinely represents the views of the public. First past the post has led to successive parliaments that do not reflect upon how people have voted. 2015 was the most disproportionate election in British history. The Conservatives won 37% of the vote, whilst UKIP, the Green Party and the Liberal Democrats won almost a quarter of the vote between them, but ended up sharing just 1.6% of the seats. This meant that the Conservatives could form a government despite 63% of people voting for other parties. This is an unhealthy feature of British democracy which finds millions of people unable to express their views at the ballot box. This has led to safe seats which are highly unlikely to change hands, meaning MPs have a job for life. And we have an example of that in one of our constituencies. West Dorset, for example, has been a Conservative seat since 1885. Voters in West Dorset have very little ability to influence the first election result because the election result is a foregone conclusion. The answer to preventing this is PR system. Greens will be supporting this motion. Evidence suggests that PR will bring more diverse candidates and a better economic policy, and policy that doesn't massively lurch to the left and then to the right.
Councillor Sanford, would you sum up?
Yes, thank you. I've actually been quite impressed by some of the contributions that we've had, and I'd just like to respond to a few of them. Councillor Moyo made some really good points, but I felt really that she was talking more about parliamentary elections when she was talking about the link between the voters and an individual representative. There certainly is a coherent argument in parliamentary elections that individual link is important, but I just have to say that the actual argument that England and the UK has had a long history of democracy and that this is being due to first past the post, it's quite a nice argument, but it's actually not true. If you look back to, I think it was before 1880s, quite a number of the seats in England were actually not single member seats, but dual member seats. And there actually were a number of seats in Parliament that were elected under single transferable vote system. Particularly, I think it was the seats that were reserved for Oxford University and Cambridge University. So I think also the argument about extremism, I think I think that was addressed. What leads to extremism is these one-party states where one party is in charge of a council in perpetuity. They don't have to care about what the people think because they're always there. So that encourages them to put forward extreme policies. The arguments about the alternative vote, Councillor Wiggin actually addressed that. It's not a proportional system. They have it in Australia and it produces even greater distortions than first past the post does. I'd just like to respond to what Shaz said. When I referred to the Labour Party conference, I wasn't being disparaging. I actually think that vote at your conference was actually quite historic, in fact, because you know, if we can, if the Labour Party is finally convinced that a change in the voting system is required, both in national elections and local elections, I think, you know, that could mean that we could remove Britain from this perpetual conservative control that we seem to be in. So I think it's really important. Just make one final point. You know, just bear in mind we're talking here in this motion about elections to local councils. We're not talking about Parliament. And I just go back to my original point. It's arguable about elections for Parliament, but for elections for local authorities, the case for PR is overwhelming.
Thank you. I think we may now move to the vote. Is that correct? Yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we are now voting on the motion as moved by Councillor Sanford in relation to the electoral form. So again, it's with your electronic voting. So green button is in favour, red is against, and your yellow is abstaining. The vote is now live. Yes, it is. Thank you, councillors. The results are 27 in favour, 30 against. There were no abstentions, therefore this is defeated.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 13A is in relation to changes to the executive delegation. Councillor Fitzgerald, would you therefore like to move the recommendations?
Happy to do so, Mr Mayor, as before you tonight.
Agreed?
Agreed. Oh, hang on.
Councillor Hogg. Yeah, sorry. I need a second. Steve Allen, would you second the recommendation?
Yes.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. Councillor Hogg.
Yes, indeed, I am happy. Reserve my right. Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. I just reading this document that we've got. There's very little information there, and specifically, it does say in the under the section for financial implications, it says there are no direct financial consequences arising from this report. But I believe that this is an extra position and that there is actually a financial consequence to this decision. So the paperwork doesn't reflect that. I would like to see documents such as this coming to full council that basically says why this position was needed. I'm not saying that the position isn't needed, but it would be nice to know why the position was needed. It would also be nice to know that the person getting the job is, just kind of justified. A few paragraphs maybe just to justify why this person was chosen for this position. I think that is right and proper to be. I just feel like there's an element of contempt to this chamber in the fact that it's just we're going to do it, we can do it, we're going to do it, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. It just seems a little bit rude, that's all.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, there's no financial implication. It's unallocated funding. The funding is already allocated, but it's just unused, and all that's happening is it's now being used. Also, to be fair, until the rules change or that you're in charge, Christian, I don't have to justify who I put in the cabinet and what roles they do. I don't do it at council, full council, and I'm not going to do it for anybody else. It's unfair of you to try and single somebody out. No, it is, because it is. You just said it's about a person. Doesn't matter who the person is, I know that. But the point is, they're my decisions as leader, and when you're the leader, when you get your PR, then you can decide who you have in your cabinet or deputy cabinet, and then that's a matter for you. But in the meantime, it's a matter for me. I don't make the rules. Those are what the rules are.
No other speakers? No other speakers? So, yeah. Is it agreed? Yes.
Is it agreed? No, I don't think. Is it agreed? No, it's not
Would
agreed.
you like a vote, or is it agreed? No? No?
Going to the vote.
Okay, may I call upon?
Okay, we're going to the vote. Councillors, we are moving now to vote on the recommendation from committee in relation to the change to the executive delegations. So it's the voting system again. It's green in favour, red against, yellow to abstain. Thank you. Thank you, members. The results are 49 in favour, 6 against, and there were 2 abstentions. Therefore, this is agreed.
Okay, agenda item 13B is in relation to the appointment of the monitoring officer. Before we move to debate this item, I will hand over to Rachel.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before we debate this item, the Chamber needs to first consider whether we should exclude the press and the public from this meeting at this point. This would be because the report includes ongoing labour relations matters. The full details of this are set out in the front of your agenda item page.
Are there any objections to excluding the press and the public from the meeting at this point? No? Thank you, members, in which case we will pause